Greetings and salutations, everybody. This is going to be another one of my sort of project show and tells. I'm going to discuss some of the things that I put into Titan Zer0, which is actually a remake, sort of a remake. It's a spiritual successor to another game I made that is basically using the same code called AF-Khimera. I'll link to that video. I'll link to that game on itch.io in the video description, but I'll also link to this game as well. They actually use like 99% the same code. I changed almost nothing. I just added a fun dungeon spawner and got some new beefed up graphics as far as 2D games are concerned. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the things that I have in here so you can see what I have. Let me adjust my workspace a little bit so it's more akin to what we're going to be doing for this. Okay, so I'm a Unity developer primarily, so I have ways about these different things. So this is the title screen, right? So you got your new game, credit scene. The game sort of like keeps track of the maximum amount of energy that you've gotten during a run. It's basically, gold or credits or whatnot. And then it also keeps track of the lowest level you've reached. So the first floor is the ground floor, and then each level beyond that is just a number. So basement 1, basement 2, basement 3, and it just goes down pretty much infinitely. So it's a roguelike game, right? And so you've got that in canvas elements here. So this is, the scene. This is the canvas that holds most of the stuff. I've also got some fun particle systems. Let me see if I can find a... Oh, right, because I don't have particles in this map. Let's go to a different one. So the title screen, once you play it, it takes you to the briefing, which is this thing here. Then I've got a 4-part dialogue canvas. If I go ahead and play this, it's going to be some music, but got those things there. Yep, and you do that. It goes in there, and I've got a fun little transition scene. And then the first ground level is actually Mars. And I'm using an asset pack I got from Unity that lets me sort of like determine where things are on the map. I tried doing a mini map, didn't work that well. This is actually an asset pack that I've used for previous games. One of ones that's using similar stuff. I got little things there. But yeah, so that's what that is. These graphics were 3D rendered in Blender. I did those. I'm very proud of that one very much. That planetoid surface thing. But I've got, so the dialogue canvas is how I handle sort of like different dialogues. And there's actually, I modified this to make just one window, but I have it set up to where in another project where you can do multiple windows. So you can like this person talks, then this person, then this person. I have so if we go into my little, expand my things here, I'm bringing this up. So I have a transition game object that I made for this transition matrix, sort of like subfolder here. So I have a crossfade built in, but I like the gate transition. And so what happens is this little guy spins, this guy moves in, and it's real fun like that. If I go into this one, I'm sure I can see the scene. Left and right, yeah. We got those, and then the locks there. So it's a fun little gate transition that I made, and then the scene fades. It goes to the next scene whenever the gates close. It happens pretty seamlessly, actually. The main game I have in here, Titan Zer0, I didn't do it before, but now whenever I make content, I make a subfolder under the assets for my project, so that if I ever want to, share a, what am I thinking of? If I ever want to share a Unity package, I could just right-click the folder, and I can choose Export Package, and that way I can share that between my various flash drives, and I can port a project to my laptop pretty easily just by dragging this in here. So we got audio, which I got from some things. I got some sound effects, fonts. I'm using Zendots, which is a Google font. And then I've got graphics, and all my sprites are here. So the enemies and the player ship, enemy mech. So these are really just frame by frame 3D renders of an animation that I made for a mech robot. It's just sort of like bobs up and down, sort of left and right a little bit. So we've got the drone sphere, which actually has a much longer animation. just because I wanted to rotate 360 degrees. Got a mech large, got a mech medium, got a mech small. Yeah, there we go. Yep, so I got some of those. And then I picked up a laser pack from, can't remember, I think it was Open Game Art, but it could have been somewhere else. It's in the credits. I forget exactly what I wrote down, but I did. And then the player mech is really just a small mech, but he's blue, right? And then I got the red planet, just for the things. And then prefabs, I've got basically the same things, but in there, right? Interactables. So the way that the game works, I wanna show you. This is the meat and potatoes. So the let's go to mission 1. So mission 1 does a spawn dungeon script. I originally had a first version, but I migrated to a second version. But I wanted to keep the first version just in case I wanted to use it for a simpler game. So what this script does, this is the one doing all the meat and potatoes right here, the heavy lifting, as they say. So the dungeon script sets a width and height of a dungeon. So if we go to grid, this is the big thing right here. So this is the entire level, right? It's completely blank. And what the spawn dungeon script does is it gets a wall prefab that is going to populate, gets the exit prefab, right? Just the exit gate so it can move it to a location. Gets the entry gate, doesn't really do anything. It just signifies that the player starts here. And if there's any keys, it gets that. Enemies that it spawns, different destructibles, and ammo and health crates that it spawns, right? And so it gets a width of 100 by 100. And then what it does is it starts right in the middle, just right in the center. And then it sets it just basically does, I've heard it being called like a step route, right? So all I'm doing is I'm stepping a couple squares at a time, basically between 4 and 8 is what I have set in here. I'm stepping about 4 to 8 squares at a time, and then every time I do that, I have a set chance of just spawning a room, and then I'll just go do until I reach the end of a level, or until I reach a wall, basically. So what it ends up being is usually it's a pretty nice set of sort of like maze-like areas, but not too mazy. Usually it's a fairly straight beeline, or you can work your way around it without much issue. It's just the right amount of complexity. And it spawns hallways and rooms until it gets to, one of these edges on the end. And then when it does that, it stops and then places the endpoint there. So you know that whenever you play the game, you basically just have to get to one of the edges. And then I have the sprites for the various, for several things set up to be diffused instead of just like normal sprites. So the lighting effects will have an impact on them. And everything is more or less on the same level, so it does that. Got an exit gate, right? Goes to the same level actually. Yeah, that's the trick. It goes to the exact same level. So you're just playing the same level endlessly, but every time it populates with new a new layout, new enemy placement, and then as you progress through the game, once you get past the 5th layer and then the 10th or 15th layer and then the 20th layer, you get new mission objective options added in. So the first part is just get to the end, and then once you hit the 5th layer, I believe it gives you the option to find a key, and then you get the option later on that says maybe it's find a key or destroy all enemies, and then later on it's just like you could potentially have to do both. So it's also resource survival based, right? So you have your main gun, which will, let me go ahead and play this so you can see it. I want you to take a look at it. So you have your main gun, which does its own thing. And let's go in here. And I'm probably not going to have an opportunity to show you specifically. Yeah, I did it. So then your secondary gun has an ammunition that it plays. Back to title. Your secondary gun has an ammunition that it plays, so it does that, and then obviously you can get more ammunition by picking up more weapon drops. But they also change the weapons, so it's kind of a fun little aside. That's basically the gist of the gameplay, and then it's just how far you can get before your health runs out and you can't replenish it anymore, or when your weapons run out, now you're down to like your regular gun until you can get more. So it's basically it involves a lot of resource management and risk taking and risk aversion, whether or not you should confront enemies or just run past them. The enemy bullets fly fairly slowly, so you don't have to worry too much as long as there's not a whole lot of them. But you could get hit, and it's harder to get health back up. That's basically it. I'll just go through some of the scenes that I have. So I showed you mission 1. Mission 0 is just the red planet. I've got a splash screen, which is more or less just the splash text. I have a thing here. Let me just set the alpha to 1, right? So that's what that is. And then I have the title screen, which you saw, and then the credit screen. Save. The credit screen right here. So do that, and it just scrolls upwards, right? And that's fairly straightforward. And then I've got I've got particle effects. Yeah, that's basically it. I hope you all enjoy that. I like to share these things occasionally, so I hope it was somewhat fun to look at. But yeah, so I'll catch you next time, and have a nice day.